I'll be explaining the Hindu editorial, the climate risk. At a climate risk, only proper planning can ensure against the inevitable extremities of the nature. Only proper planning can ensure against. Ensure means to protect. It's slightly different from ensure, which means to make sure, or which means to reassure. So only proper planning can protect us from inevitable, means which cannot be stopped, um, such as natural calamities. Those types of disasters cannot be stopped. So only proper planning can protect us against those types of disasters. The monsoon is nearing its halfway mark, and July, which is among the rainiest months, began with a rainfall deficit but has since seen a revival. The monsoon is nearing its halfway mark. So the monsoon has already reached its halfway mark, means it has already become halfway adverse, and July, which is one of the most rainiest months, began with a rainfall deficit. So the month of July, it began with a deficit in the rainfall, means initially in the initial days of July the rainfall was low, and since then it has seen a revival, means since the initial days the rainfall has increased. For most of the last week, all India rainfall has been over 50% more than what is normal for this time of the year. For most of the last week, the rainfall has been 50% more than what is normal. So for example, if the normal is like 30 centimeters of rainfall, um, the last week it was 45, because it was 50% more than 30, so it was 45 centimeters of rainfall. Many regions in the Konkan coast and the southern peninsula have been seeing instances of extreme rainfall. So many regions in the Konkan coast and the southern and in the southern peninsula regions, some regions have also experienced extreme rainfall. Means the rainfall was, it was extremely high. According to India's meteorological department um, data on the regional distribution, the South Peninsula has seen 29% more rain from June 1 from June 1st to July 25 than what is normal for this period. So, according to the data of IMD, or the Indian Meteorological Department, the rainfall in the regions of the South Peninsula, means the regions like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and so on. So in these regions, the rainfall, it has been increased by 29% from what is normal. So so in the last time we've seen that in the last week the rainfall has been increased by 50%. But now in the southern regions, in the southern regions of India, um, the rainfall has been increased by 29%, and this increase has been seen since June 1st to July 25th. Rainfall in Mahabaleshwar, Maharashtra was torrential enough to beat its all-time record, according to the IMD. So this was the case of the regions in the southern peninsula. If you are talking about the regions like Maharashtra and Mahabaleshwar, in these regions the rainfall was so heavy. It was so heavy that here they use the word torrential. It means very heavy. So the rainfall in these regions were so heavy that they have broken even the all-time records of the regions. The monsoon is characterized by unexpected variability that forecast models can capture only in a limited way. And the most unfortunate thing is that we were not even able to predict these types of huge rainfalls, because for some reason these were very unexpected. However, much evidence is accumulating that there is a distinctive change in the climate patterns. However, the evidence or the proof that we have been gathering since recent times has been proving that there is a distinctive change in the climate patterns. So the word distinct, it means it is an adjective that we use to describe about something that stands out in a group of people or in a group of things. So here the word distinctive, it could mean that something that's very unique or something that can be clearly observed. So a clear change in the climate patterns um, has been observed due to the evidence or due to the proof that we have gathered. The frequency and the strength of cyclones over the Arabian Sea have increased in the last 2 decades. So in the last 2 decades, the frequency and the strength The frequency is then means the number of times the number of times which the cyclone has occurred, and the strength of the cyclone means the rainfall, the amount of the rainfall of the cyclones, or the wind speed of the cyclones. Both of them have also increased. There has been a 52% increase in the frequency of cyclones over the Arabian Sea from 2001 to 2019, and an 8% decrease over the Bay of Bengal compared to 1982 to 2002, when historically more cyclones have been in the Bay of Bengal, according to a new study in the climate dynamics. Um, we have just read about the frequency and the strength of the cyclones. Over the Arabian Sea, the frequency of the cyclones have been increased by 52%. But in the case of Bay of Bengal, the frequency of the cyclones have been decreased by 8%. And the irony is that in the historical times, in the past times, cyclones they used to occur mostly in the Bay of Bengal part. But recently, according to the IMD data, the frequency of the cyclones has been decreased in the Bay of Bengal. Even the duration of those cyclones has increased by 80%. So even the duration of the cyclones occurring over the Arabian Sea, that duration has been increased by 80%. More cyclones are bringing in more moisture from the Arabian Sea and contributing to extreme rainfall events over the western coast. The most recent example being the cyclone Taukte in May, which at 85 kilometers per hour was among the strongest cyclones to approach Mumbai. So more cyclones are bringing from the western part, that is from the Arabian Sea part, because the cyclone frequency has been increasing almost by 50%. So obviously we get more rains from that side, from the western coast. So more rains have been coming, and the most recent example for such rainfall was the cyclone of Takute, which occurred in May, and the wind speed which was contributed by the cyclone was over 185 km per hour. And this occurred in Mumbai. They drive storm surges that flood the coast. Studies show that the heating globe has increased the atmospheric moisture levels, contributing to short, intense spells of rains. So all of us have heard of global warming. Our Earth has been put through it, and our Earth is very hot. So because of the high temperature of the Earth, we obviously more water gets evaporated, and hence more moisture is going to be in the atmosphere. So because of this more moisture levels, the rainfalls are very short, and at the same time they're more intense. They give more amount of rain in short period of time. The interaction between warming, rainfall, and temperature is complex, and variables such as aerosol emissions, particulate matter pollution, agriculture, and forestry patterns must be accounted for. So, in predicting the rainfall, we must obviously consider a lot of factors such as aerosol emissions, particulate matter, and so on. However, the broader picture is that extreme events, bursts of torrential localized rainfall, and prolonged droughts and heat waves are likely to increase, making the role of accurate forecasts that are able to warn of such events at least 3 to 5 days ahead of even more important make even more important. So this sentence basically means that until now we've seen the small picture, we've seen what's been happening in the recent times. But if we want to plan for our future, if we want to think about the bigger picture, we need to consider all of these. We need to give more importance to the predictions which we are able to make, even though they are not very efficient or very good predictions, or very beneficial predictions. Those forecasts or the predictions are the only ones which we have right now. So we have to appreciate them, because we cannot do any better than that. But the bigger challenge is to undertake so-called climate proofing of the most vulnerable regions and taking warnings of scientific risk assessment seriously. So a bigger challenge than taking the predictions seriously is that we need to implement climate proofing in the areas which are most vulnerable to cyclones. And we should also take the scientific advices or the scientific data given by the IMD more seriously. Evacuations ahead of a flood or a cyclone are not always effective, and what is needed is limited construction in places that have been marked vulnerable. So, when a cyclone or a flood comes in, the most common precaution is to evacuate a building, but that is not really effective because we cannot evacuate large amounts of people in a small amount of time. So what is better is that if we limit the number of buildings or number of constructions, in the first place more amount of people will not be there, so more amount of people can be saved from the cyclones. Just as it is possible to plan earthquake resilient structures and site them scientifically, but hard to anticipate a major earthquake, similarly, proper planning can ensure against inevitable extremities of nature. So, I'm sure that most of us have heard of earthquake resilient structures. These buildings are usually the buildings which can withstand the damage done by earthquakes. So, similarly, we can also plan in a similar way, and we can we can protect our loved ones and ourselves against the natural calamities such as cyclones. International climate change agreements to limit greenhouse gas emissions will yield benefits only in the very long term, but what is done in near future will mean the difference between surviving and thriving. So we have this India and most of the countries actually have decided to decrease the greenhouse emissions. They have decided to decrease the gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and carbon monoxide, and so on, so that the temperature of the earth will decrease and become normal, which will which will prevent these types of natural disasters. But doing so means decreasing the emissions of carbon dioxide gases and so on. It's not something that could happen immediately because it takes a lot of time for the gases to deplete in our atmosphere. So we have to wait for a long amount of time. But we should first plan on the near future because the actions which we take in the near future will decide whether we will thrive or survive in the near future. Thank you.